Okay, we are going to go over the judicial branch today, and this is our final branch of government. If you have not learned about the executive or the legislative branch, we have done that this week, so make sure you go back to look over all of your notes and everything that we have studied so far. While I am going through this, I want you to fill out your notes on OneNote, and hopefully you're able to see this video on OneNote. If not, just have it open on YouTube and then make sure you're completing your notes on OneNote. The notes are going to be very simple. You're just going to sort of fill in the blank for all of the information that is on this PowerPoint. So make sure you pay attention so you can do that. All right, the judicial branch. They are responsible for interpreting the law in regards to the Constitution. So all of the laws that are created by the legislative branch, either federal government or even on our state governments, because we do have a legislative branch even in our state governments, all laws are then interpreted by the judicial branch, because just like any law or any rule, everyone could kind of interpret it slightly different or follow part of the law and not follow the other part because they didn't think they had to. So the judicial branch follows up on that and makes sure that they're able to explain what the law actually means. Final Court of Appeals for state and federal cases, that is basically what the judicial branch holds and at the federal level. So anything that goes through your state courts or for federal cases, really big crimes that could have been committed, all of that will go up to the judicial branch at a federal level. The Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president, and they are approved by the Senate, and they hold their office for life or retirement. Okay, so they are appointed by the president, and then everybody in the Senate will vote for that Supreme Court justice to make sure they get passed. And then they are there until they retire from the position or they could pass away in office, which happened last year with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Currently, there are 9 justices, and that can only be changed by a constitutional amendment. So that could be changed, but that needs to go through Congress, and a decision needs to be made to add additional or subtract justices. Justices hear 150 cases per year, but there are over 5,000 requests. 4 justices need to agree to hear a case. So if 4 justices agree, that is how they pick a case out of the 5,000 that go in front of them. Session is only through October, from October through June. So in the months of July, August, and September, that is their summer break, basically. So they're not hearing court cases during that time. They are either removed by impeachment or conviction. So just like the president, if something bad happens with a Supreme Court justice where they are breaking the law, they can be removed. Otherwise, they will be in that position for life. Their qualifications. There's really nothing listed in the Constitution. So what's really important to know is that unlike the president, where they need to be of a certain age and they need to have a certain naturalization or citizenship requirement, that's not really happening in the Supreme Court or in the judicial branch. The unofficial qualifications, though, are they should be politically active. They should have been a lawyer or are a lawyer or a lower court judge. So they don't just go into the position of being Supreme Court judge without actually having been a judge before. And they usually are from the same political party as the president. It is very rare that they come from a different political party and are appointed by the president. Article 3 is where we define treason. Treason is committing an overt action, and it must be seen. So anytime there is a treason case where somebody is deemed to be committing an overt action, basically against the country in some way or against the people of the United States, that case has to be seen in the Supreme Court. That does not get thrown out. Talking about treason is not a crime. It cannot punish family. Anybody who committed treason, they are not able to have all their family members. They will not be convicted just because somebody within their family committed treason. The Judicial Act of 1789 created a 3-part court system. It established the office of the Attorney General. So the Attorney General is basically like the lawyer and his department for the whole United States. We also have attorney generals in each state as well. So if there's something big that happens against the state, we have the Attorney General's office to bring a court case about. The job of the Attorney General is to represent the USA in the Supreme Court and to be the legal advisor to the executive branch. So that's the other thing too. The Attorney General works with the president and is also basically the president's helpful legal advisor. It is not the president's lawyer, but he does advise the executive branch. The Chief Justice, or basically the head of the Supreme Court. In the Supreme Court, below the Chief Justice, we have 9 justices. Then below that, we have the circuit courts. There are 13 court of appeals. These are basically if you need to go state versus state. So if something happens in New Hampshire and like Alabama and they need to go against each other, that's how that works. And then the next level are district courts, trial courts, civil cases, criminal cases. All of those district, trial, civil, and criminal, that is where people get called up to jury duty mostly. You can be called up to circuit courts, but they're usually those 4 down at the end are usually the ones that people have to do jury duty for. Civil cases, that's when you can sue somebody because you owe them or they owe you some money. Divorce, contracts, any case that does not involve a crime. Criminal cases is when a big crime is committed. The defendant, that is the person who is on trial. They need to defend themselves. The plaintiff is the person who brought the case to court. So they're the ones that are saying that the defendant committed some type of crime. And the prosecutor, that represents the city, the state, or the people in a criminal case. Okay. Influences on the court, precedents, past decisions, and personal legal views. Strict interpretation means to look at the intent of the founding fathers. The broad interpretation means you need to look into the account changes in society. So all of this information, the influences that are actually on the court that make these decisions and on the justices, the precedents are the important one. Any past decisions that were made by the Supreme Court, they hold on to those and they make sure to say like, well, the reason this person is guilty or not guilty, or the reason we're making this decision or not this decision is because we've already talked about this before. They also have personal legal views. So sometimes they're talking about when the Constitution was written, what was meant by the Constitution. Another thing they could be doing is interpreting it, saying, well, society has changed a lot since our country was made 250 years ago, 300 years ago. So we want to think about how our people are going to react and what they need now. The justices do interact with each other. So their interaction with each other can also sway decision making. They also have public opinion, Congress and the president. So if Congress is planning to pass certain laws, they need to look at that. If people are really upset with a certain issue that is going in front of the Supreme Court, they will follow that. They might follow or be influenced by the public opinion because they realize this is what the public needs. All right, so that is basically all the information. A lot of it focuses on the Supreme Court, but that's because that is the highest court in our country. So that is very, very important to know about. And that is it. Make sure you fill out your notes.